Here's Jeff Paterson, the host of RinkWide Vancouver, and of course our Canucks reporter. He was busy with 2 games on the weekend, both losses. And Jeff, they just can't score goals.com.
No, Blake, does the contest come with any guarantees of goals on the night in question?
Does not, unfortunately. No. Okay. They may, though, if you're wearing those jerseys that you win, they may ask you to come off the bench, and because you probably will have as much luck as the rest of them.
We may need to mock up those shirts again, Jeff. Another batch.
Yeah, vibe check on a Monday. The goodwill that was there before the break has gone completely out of the balloon. Yeah, tough to watch the game in Utah. I thought they played hard in Vegas. Third period push there, a couple of goals that didn't count. I thought they did some decent things against a good Vegas team, but back-to-backs are becoming an issue for this hockey club. 1 win in 6 back-to-back games. The second half, at least the back-to-backs, can't throw those games away. And yet they have picked up 2 of a possible 12 points where every point matters. They're running headlong into another back-to-back. And then, as we talked about last week, there are a few more here coming up after the trade deadline as well. So that's a challenge. It seems like everything's a challenge for the Vancouver Canucks right now. And, look, they're in the entertainment business. Somebody's got to remind them of that. You're not going to win every night. I get that. But on the nights that you're going to be bad, they've found a way to be really bad and really just any sort of lack of flair and panache and whatnot. It's just an absolute grind to gain the zone and do anything with the puck. And that was on full display again, unfortunately, in what was a big game. Now, Utah's within 4 points of them. They still have another head-to-head matchup left. So on a night when the Canucks get to the third period and a 1-1 tie for the second night in a row and get nothing to show for it, Calgary pulls out a late win. Utah wins. Anaheim, don't look now. But that game on Thursday at the Honda Center has some significance in terms of Anaheim creeping closer to the Vancouver Canucks. There's a sentence I didn't ever think I would utter at the outset of this season. So, they're above the playoff bar for the time being, but not going to stay there long if they play more games like they did over the weekend.
And the back-to-back stuff is worth watching. As you note, the Kings and Ducks later this week, back-to-back. Blake and I noticed this next month as well. You got Montreal, Calgary back-to-back, and Chicago, Utah back-to-back. So lots of back-to-backs coming up here for the Canucks. Jeff, what did you make of what Tocchet had to say about Pettersson and about Pettersson's reaction to IMAC?
Yeah, look, Rick Tocchet's run out of answers, clearly. If there were buttons to be pushed, he would have pushed them all. Would have hammered them now, 57 games into the season. But we've discussed this as the season has gone along. It just feels like Rick Tocchet, like pretty much everybody else, can't get through to Elias Pettersson. So Elias Pettersson seems to know best, and yet we're judging him on his actions on the ice, and the actions aren't doing much to support his case. And so post-game, if he wants to say it's the media's fault, which is essentially what he said, and I wasn't there in the room, so I didn't hear the tone. I didn't know if there was some sort of attempt at, cheeky humor in it. I read it on a screen, and it comes across as he doesn't like dealing with the media. Well, I think that's been abundantly clear for a while now. Guess what? It was the same media group that was there day in, day out when he put up 102 points. It's the same media group that followed him when he won his Rookie of the Year, and in fact, he made the conscious decision to remember Jason Botchford as he got to the stage in Vegas to claim his Rookie of the Year award. So he didn't seem to have huge issues with the media then, and when the going's been good. And I say this all the time. Like on the nights that guys have big nights in the NHL and score hat-tricks, they never seem to thank the media. Nor should they. But it's always the media's fault, right? Like, we're not out there on the ice. It's been painted so clearly that this year of all years, out on the road, quite often there is no media. And, I've had some people online asking me about the comments by Pettersson. Look, I don't travel, so that eliminates half the road game or half the games on the schedule. But when they're at home, I'm at every practice, I'm at every game day skate. I'm not there post-game because of RinkWide. But I was racking my brain today. I believe my last interaction with Elias Pettersson in the locker room was ahead of the Washington game on January 25th, a month ago. A guy that's there daily. The last time that I put a microphone in Elias Pettersson's face, like this, I'm just trying to make it so clear to people, this idea that there's a burden on these guys to do daily media, to face the music and the hard questions. It's been a month. I've been there every day for every availability. After the Washington game, they went out on the road. They made trades. When they came back, the new guys were the flavor of the week. So nobody talked to Elias Pettersson in that week that they were at home. Then the Four Nations, and now they start out of the Four Nations out on the road. In terms of facing this gauntlet, it's too much. It's overbearing. I can't do it anymore. It's been a month since I've talked to him. So just take that for what it's worth.
And Quinn Hughes seems to be okay with the media. Quinn Hughes is the guy that has been injured. He had this whole Team USA issue. He seems to be just fine.
I'll take it a step further, Blake, and say Tyler Myers, to me, is the example of how to deal with it. People wanted to run Tyler Myers out of town. The media, the fan base, people just had no time for this guy and the way that he was playing, the money that he was making. And through it all, he has been the model of grace and professionalism and stands in there and takes the slings. And now that his play has been better and people have wanted to talk to him more, that hasn't changed him. He steps in there, answers it, had a great chat with him ahead of the gold medal or the championship game last week. An American, obviously born in the U.S., but has been a Canadian for most of his life. But we had some fun with that and which side he was on. And so it can be done. It can be done. And we're talking about a player with a letter on his jersey in Pettersson. We haven't even talked about what he makes, but that comes with the territory. In his own words, he has asked management, told management he wants to be here. He wants to be the guy. And then when the hard questions come, well, it's the media.
Yeah, well, Tyler Myers is not a punk. Is this a player who is basically asking out, Jeff? Is that what you're resigned to?
Well, he better be careful what he asks for. He better be careful what he asks for because he has no trade protection. If he winds up in Buffalo or Columbus, say what you will about those cities and those markets, they're covered heavily. Even Columbus has guys on the beat and in that room on a daily basis. Aaron Portzline's been at this as long as we have and covers the Columbus Blue Jackets terrifically. And Buffalo's got some guys that will ask some pointed questions. In today's NHL, even if it's Carolina or Anaheim or some of the, we would consider softer media markets, there are still people from NHL.com that are asking questions on a daily basis. Maybe they're not as pointed as some of the others, but if you're making what you're making, people are going to want to know. They're going to be fascinated. And I've in 25 years covering the Canucks, have never seen a season like this and really have never dealt with a player like this who is such an enigma. And, it seems to be getting tougher by the day to pull out anything from him. People are curious. And the best you can do is throw it back at the media. Come on. Your general managers questioned your maturity level. I sit here and I wonder, does Elias Pettersson blame the media when Jim Rutherford said what he said ahead of the JT Miller because it appeared in a newspaper article? Is that the media's fault? Or is it the president of hockey operations, coming off the top rope from the corner office? So is it a cry to get out? Maybe, but he better be really careful about what he wishes for because I'm not sure that it's going to be a whole lot better in a lot of places.
And the end result here is that on the ice, he is the last big problem with the Vancouver Canucks. The defense is playing just fine.
Well, Demko.
But the goaltending's outstanding without Demko.
Fair. Demko's injury is a problem, but yes, the goaltending this weekend was outstanding.
But they've got the cover right now for Thatcher Demko's injury. What they need is a top six center, and Hedl is a bit of a third-line center masquerading as a second right now. They needed a first-line center right now more than ever. And they're going to get Quinn Hughes back, and he's going to help them create more offense. There's no question about that. So, again, that underlines the fact there's one gaping hole. There's one huge problem, and it's the first-line center. There's just no getting around it. It's not like the magnifying glass is going away anytime soon here.
No, and let's be clear. No goals in 11 games, one in the 17 games that he has played since Christmas. Now, he missed a handful of games out of the Christmas break, but since he got back in the lineup, it's one goal in 17 games. It came at home against the Buffalo Sabres. Guys, we talked about this on RinkWide last night. He has 2 road goals all season. one in Anaheim and one in Pittsburgh. Neither of those teams is a Stanley Cup contender. Neither of those teams lives above the playoff bar. And his goal in Anaheim, if you recall, it grazed his jersey, and they had to review it. And originally, I think it was a Quinn Hughes goal, and it was changed to Elias Pettersson. So one goal off his stick and one goal off his jersey on the road for $11.6 million. It is wild. And so, yes, I mean, they are missing all sorts of dynamic thrust offensively. The problem is, like, when Quinn Hughes gets back there, I mean, he makes the Canucks a better team, without a doubt. And he's fun to watch, and he brings an enjoyment in covering and watching this hockey club that's not there right now. But, like, when he's been healthy, he's racked up points, but it hasn't rubbed off on anybody else. And so just getting Quinn Hughes back doesn't automatically make Elias Pettersson more productive or make this team, make the forwards a whole lot better. And that's kind of been the disconnect all season, is that how does Quinn, for all the talk of Tocchet's system and, nobody can score in Tocchet's system except the defenseman, can get to 59 points and has no issues producing, but everybody else around him has just had a season that's really in the gutter. I mean, DeBrusk, I suppose, notwithstanding, he's done what he's been expected to do. But even some of the guys that started well, like Kiefer Sherwood, got off to this great start. And the effort and the energy and the hits are all there, but he's got 2 goals in his last 22 games. So his offense has dropped off. Pius Suter has dropped off. Connor Garland has 1 point in his last 8 games. Like, where did the Energizer Bunny that is Connor Garland, like, where has he gone as well? So, yes, Elias Pettersson is the hot button issue without a doubt and stands alone. But there are others that are struggling too. And all these low-scoring games, guys, they open the scoring both games here over the weekend. They get to the third period 1-1. Like, a goal from anybody could have swung either one of those games. And instead, close doesn't count. They come out
and given their OT record, Jeff, they clearly just don't play very well when it's tight. Like, they don't rise to the occasion here.
And yet the games before the break, the Toronto game was a tight game, and they found a way there. And San Jose, they needed a penalty shot in overtime, but they did grind that one out. I think that, again, and it goes back to, they're getting the goaltending defensively with the structure and the changes that they've made there. These are all winnable games. They're in these games, but ultimately you can't win a game 1-1. You do need a second goal. I guess in the NHL you can get to a shootout 1-1 and then try and win it there. But no, I mean, it shouldn't be this monumental ask to get 2 goals in a hockey game. And yet they have 9 goals in the last 5 games that they've played. So, and of those, 4 at 5-on-5, 4 on the power play, and then the Drew O'Connor penalty shot goal. So 4 5-on-5 goals in the last 5 games. That is a really difficult way to think that you're going to maintain your hold on a playoff spot. And even if you do, what do they look like if they sneak into the playoffs? Unless there is some sort of fundamental change with this group, it would not be a long stay in the postseason.
So is your prescription better be a seller than a buyer here at the deadline, Jeff?
I think so. What they've got here, just it's not working. It's not helping them. And this idea that adding to this group, I don't like the idea of spending significant assets. If they want to tinker, and if it could be a player out and a player in and just try and alter the chemistry a little bit, maybe. But, just look at the way that they're going. And again, all roads lead back to Elias Pettersson. But, Kiefer Sherwood, as I talked about, on a good team, he's probably a third-line guy. Drew O'Connor, brought in on a good team, he's probably a third-line guy. Well, right now, both of those players are playing top 6 minutes and top 6 roles. Brock Besser, you can imagine there's probably a fair bit on his mind, and it's kind of looked like it in a lot of the games here of late. Scored a big goal against Toronto, turned out to be the game winner, but the 2 games here over the weekend I thought was remarkably quiet. You go down the list, and who are the candidates here? And anytime you get to a guy that really should be a third liner, you're asking too much. And so, yes, this is a group that has stripped away some of the elite level talent that it had, and the one guy that remains here is so woefully underperforming. It's just, this idea of waiting with Elias Pettersson, and I don't think they're going to trade Elias Pettersson before the trade deadline. Like, I do think he's here through the duration of this season and the playoffs. I can't imagine that there's a contender out there that's watched the Four Nations, has watched this season, and thought that's what we need to bolster our team here down the stretch run. So I think Pettersson remains through the season. But what does it look like? I don't see a switch being flipped in any way. And we know the struggles that he had in the playoffs last year. The way it stands right now, if they do creep into the playoffs, they're running straight into Winnipeg or Vegas in the first round. How could you possibly think that Elias Pettersson, in his current state, is going to be a difference maker in a playoff series against one of those heavyweights in the Western Conference?
Jeff, what are we doing here? This is a 26 win in 57 game team that is minus 14 in goal differential. What are we doing here? This,
I think it's absolutely fair to ask about the direction now. This management group has taken the Vancouver Canucks. They inherited one of the sexiest young rosters in the National Hockey League with one of the deepest spines down the middle, the envy of a lot of teams in the National Hockey League, and they've stripped away 2/3 of that, and the one piece that remains is having the season and is now in the middle of this firestorm. They've tried to address some of the needs in the back end, and I think they've made some strides there. But again, this idea of going into games and trying to win 1-0 or 2-1, you can stay in those games. But the minute your opponent gets 2, all of a sudden now you need what feels like, a bushel full. And there are going to be nights you fall behind. And yeah, they've opened the scoring the last couple of games, but guess what? They're not going to open the scoring every game the rest of the way. They're going to fall behind. They're going to trail. And at that point, do they have enough push? Do they have enough thrust offensively? And right now it feels the answer is no. And so to your question, Blake, I'm not sure. I don't see a vision or a direction to make the Vancouver Canucks a Stanley Cup contender. And I think it is fair now to ask, what is Quinn Hughes' view on all of this? Because it feels like every move that should be made in the short term here should be about trying to support this guy and build around him and prove to him that this team can get back on the path. But in the here and now, and given what happened last week with the uncertainty around Four Nations and all of that, it just feels like there's way more questions than answers right now. And we don't hear from Quinn Hughes because he's injured. I hope he gets back in the lineup here soon. I've got a piece of Canucks Army coming out later today, wondering if these games that Quinn Hughes has missed, are they hurting or helping his chances of repeating as a Norris winner? When he's out of the lineup, it's so clear how much they miss him and what he means, but there has to be a threshold as well. And he's missed 10 games so far. I still think he can win the Norris missing just 10 games, but if that becomes 15 somewhere along the line, Makar and Werenski aren't slowing down anytime soon here, and I do think that voters would take that into consideration.
Yeah. All right, let's end on a happy note here, if that's okay. How about Artie Silovs in his first NHL start in 3 months? I mean, we talked a lot of Lankin and Demko on Friday, Jeff, so just fixate on Silovs here for a second. That was a terrific start, and that's something that his career needed and something the Vancouver Canucks needed as well.
Yeah, really happy for him. And looked the part of a National Hockey League last night. There are better opponents out there than Utah. They don't score a ton either, but that's who he was tabbed to play against. And, an early penalty could have kind of submarine the Canucks' effort in Utah, but he was tested on the power play there. And Utah's got a good power play, and the Canucks found out the hard way, obviously, in the third period of that fact. But if it's about building trust with your teammates and the coaching staff and wanting more opportunities, well, they got the back-to-back in Anaheim again on Thursday. I would think, based on his performance against Utah, that, he's going to get that chance where we had talked on Friday. Do they run Lankinen on both ends of a back-to-back at some point out of necessity? So I think it was important for him personally just to regain some of that confidence, to prove that, is he ready to be a full-time NHLer? Probably not. But that tweener that's continuing to develop and grow his game, he looked way more confident. And I think some of that comes from the fact that in the preceding weeks, he's been good in Abbotsford. He's delivered results there, and it felt like he was able to bring that to the NHL with him. So he didn't get the win. He's stuck on one victory on the season. But, when we look at individual performances by guys in Canucks uniforms in Utah, it's a long list of guys that didn't hold up to the end of the bargain before you get to Artur Silovs.
And I think he's probably earned himself another start in this back-to-back in Southern California later in the week. Marvelous stuff. Speaking of, we will catch up with you then as well, Jeff, after the games against the Kings and Ducks. Thanks for this. Until then.
Yeah, let's see what this week brings.